announcements and appeals, I do have one quick announcement. I'm Renee Brooke. I'm the city planner. I'm filling in today for Ellen Kokenda, who is typically our staff hearing officer. And then I do have a couple of announcements regarding some projects. Prior to that, do we have any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of ex-agenda items? I haven't received any requests, so I don't believe we do. And then moving on to announcements, which I already started. So I don't believe we have any appeals to announce as well. So the three announcements I have a very similar announcement. So I'm going to go ahead and read that first and then mention the projects that are subject to that announcement. So these three projects relate to an accessory dwelling unit in the coastal zone and pursuant to Santa Barbara Municipal Code Section 2844-110, when a proposed development involves the addition of an accessory dwelling unit to an existing single-family residence, the application shall be reviewed by the staff hearing officer without a public hearing in accordance with Subdivision J of the Government Code Section 65852.2. The staff hearing officer shall not issue a decision on the application until at least 10 calendar days after notice has been provided to the public. The staff hearing officer may receive and consider written comments from the public, but without a public hearing. The announced decision will be the final action of the city. So that announcement applies to the next three projects, the first one here being 1258 San Miguel Avenue. As mentioned, it involves the CDP to add an accessory dwelling unit to a property with an existing single-family residence. I've not received any public correspondence on this item. The second one is 121 Oliver Road, again adding an accessory dwelling unit to a property with an existing single-family residence. I do have one minor change to the conditions of approval for this one, just to insert the date on condition A1. The date of the staff hearing officer action on this item is June 15th, 2022. Minor change there. And then the third coastal development permit is at 129 Palisades Drive. Again, a proposal to add an accessory dwelling unit to a property in the coastal zone with an existing single-family residence. And I've not received any correspondence on any of these three items. I have read the staff report and the conditions proposed and the findings in those reports, and I can agree with those. And so I have made the determination to approve the coastal development permits for these three projects. And as mentioned before, the staff hearing officer's decision is final. It is not appealable. And so then I'll move on to, general public comment. If there's any comments from members of the public pertaining to items that are not on this agenda, please let us know by either filling out a speaker slip if you're here in the room or raising your hand if you're participating remotely. Do we have any such speakers?
Thank you. We do not have any general public comments.
Great. Thank you. So then I will move on to the first regular agenda item. And as I'm reading the project description, yes, thanks. If the staff would want to come up and begin the presentation, and then the applicant will be able to add any additional information. On the laptop, yes. If you wake it up, it should be set up for this project. I think the plans are already, oh, I might have to, because I'm logged in. Just one moment. Fell asleep in the meantime. You can edit step screens.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll just read the project description really quickly. So first item on the regular agenda is 525 West Pedregosa Street. The 5,000 square foot site is currently developed with a one-story, just over 1,000 square foot single-family residence and a 400 square foot detached garage and storage structure. The storage room was originally built as a carport and was subsequently enclosed. The project here before the staff hearing officer involves abating the violations that were listed in an enforcement case and a zoning information report. by allowing the attached accessory spaces, which is the carport and an area to the back of the garage, to remain within the interior setback. So the part of this project application that's before the staff hearing officer today is the request for an interior setback modification. Ms. Broadison?
Thank you, Ms. Brooke. Yes, the project, as you said, is 525 West Pedregosa. It's a 5,000 square foot lot on the east side of town, located southeast kind of Mission Street. The nearest cross street is San Pasqual. And as you said, the project site is currently developed with a one-story, 1,000 square foot single-family residence and a approximately 400 square foot detached garage and storage structure. The proposed project involves abating the violations listed in an enforcement case from 2015, which include the enclosing some storage areas attached to the garage, and you can see those here. Let's see, on the site plan. So this is the main area of work that we're speaking about today. This is the back of the property near the garage. So the enforcement case calls out enclosing some storage areas in the setback, and also there was a kitchen remodel done without permits, and also a laundry enclosure was done without permits. And then there's a ZIR from 2014 and 2016 that city records show that there's a detached one-car garage on the property. So as you stated, the request before the show today is to allow the 77 square foot storage room to be enclosed, and also the 102 square foot storage shed to be enclosed. Although there are no permits or no project plans on file for this project, there is a building permit that was issued in 1937 for an addition of a lean-to structure located on the westerly property line, right up to the property line and right adjacent to this garage. As you can see here, this lean-to storage area. It also shows the lean-to storage area extending past the rear of the garage, and also let's see, in the same footprint that you see now. So at some point, these structures were enclosed, and the applicant today is here to request a setback modification to allow the existing storage structures to remain enclosed within the setback. Given that the structure itself was permitted in 1937, allowing the structure to remain in its current location results in a less intense use than requiring the structure to be converted back to an open storage area and lean-to garage. So staff is supportive of this request because there are currently no structures on the adjacent property that would be impacted. Let's see, a similar project was already approved in 2017 and subsequently expired, so the applicants are redoing the project today. It was also exempt from design review, and the environmental analysts found that the project was exempt from further CEQA analysis. So staff recommends that the staff hearing officer approve the project, making the findings in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval. And I'm available for any questions, and also we have the applicant Dale Pekarek here.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Broadison. I don't have any questions for staff at this time, so if the applicant would come up, please, and make sure to introduce yourself, and if there's anything you want to add. The plan set should be there loaded for you. If you needed to move to a different sheet, you can do that. It's a touch screen, so you can do that. However's most comfortable for you.
Okay, this is fine right near. I'm Dale Pekarek from the Fine Line, and I did the architectural drawings that you see before you. The plans that we're looking for, as Kelly spoke well to, is once again the lean-to storage that's shown on the screen there was enclosed prior to 2017 by previous owners to my clients, and it was shingled and set up to be what it is today. What they did do is between the lean-to storage and the one-car garage, they left the common wall between the two and never dedicated, even though they put a two-car garage door on the front of the unit, they left the common wall in, and therefore created a storage area. The area, the big, more square area to the bottom, that is all walled in. At the end of the lean-to storage, that is a solid wall there. So they're basically like three almost individual rooms per se. And what we're looking and hoping for is to be able to leave the one-car garage, because that's what it was permitted in 37, and then use the lean-to garage as a storage area if it's possible for the modification to be gotten. Worst case scenario, we would take the interior wall down and go forward from there. So I'm leaving it up to the modification to hopefully allow us to leave the building 100% as is in the condition that it's in. And it was engineered, and there were plans engineered for all this structure, and it was built according to those engineered drawings prior to 2017.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions before I open public comment, just to clarify. If you wouldn't mind going to sheet 3 here, I think it's helpful to speak to the floor plan, as you mentioned how those spaces are separated from the one-car garage. Yeah, that's helpful.
There we go.
Thank you. I do understand these changes, the enclosure of these spaces and the addition of the storage area to the back was done prior to your client owning the property. And I have read the staff report, and I've been to the site. I was able to kind of walk around the neighborhood. I didn't walk onto the property because I wasn't able to coordinate in time with the owner, but I was able to see, and then through the photos was helpful to understand and just see the proximity of the structure to the neighbors. There was some confusion, I think, in the record, just the reference back to the 1937 permit that called this a lean-to carport. That I thought at one time this might have been actually used to have 2 covered spaces on the property, but it appears based on the dimensions of that space and subsequent references to just a lean-to structure, and then in 2 of our zoning information reports referring to the property as only having 1 covered parking space. My concern about potential loss of a parking space is not accurate. So I understand that the request is to retain the 1 covered parking space that we've recognized on the site since at least 1937, and to then recognize the as-built enclosure of these spaces. And I'm appreciative that the walls that are shared with the neighbor don't have any openings, so in terms of any light, noise, doors, that type of thing, hopefully wouldn't be disruptive to the neighbors. I presume you would need to submit for a building permit application, correct?
We
to,
have.
to document. Okay, and so any concerns that might
Or we
come up
will, let me put it that way.
about that, okay, would be addressed. So I'll open public comment on this item. I haven't received any written correspondence. Do we have anybody wanting to speak in the room or on the Zoom?
Thank you. Currently, we do not have any public comments, and we do not have any remote public comment.
Okay, thank you for that. I can support, staff has provided reasons to support the modification. I can agree to those based on the description in the staff report and the findings. I would just make one wording change in the findings. I'll read it and then I'll point out where I'm going to make the change. So the staff hearing officer finds that the interior setback modification is consistent with the purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance and is necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. The proposed modification will allow the existing storage spaces at the side of the garage to remain in their existing configuration. The word there was original, and I just want to recognize it's existing because the area to the back was not always there, without having to demolish the portions within the setback. This would allow for less intense use than requiring the structures to be converted back to an open-sided carport. Maybe we'll call that open-sided storage area, again, because our understanding is it hasn't been used as a carport in terms of a parking space. Because of the current location of the neighboring residence to the west and the fact that there are no existing or proposed new openings in the interior setback, no impacts to adjacent neighbors or the surrounding neighborhood are anticipated. There are some conditions of approval listed here which I'd be including in my approval of the modification. And again, I do understand that although enclosing the structure is a change within the setback, it's likely going to lead to less disturbance to the neighbor than having an open storage area there where it might be generating more noise moving in and out of that space. So with that, the modification request is approved. I do want to just let everyone know that at the end of any decision, to alert people to the appeal process, that decisions of the staff hearing officer may be appealed to the Planning Commission. And during that same 10-day appeal period, the Planning Commission can also call up any decision of the staff hearing officer and decide to take it within their jurisdiction. And then these are the instructions for anyone who might be interested in that process. And
the 10-day appeal period starts when?
it starts today, but the first day is counted as tomorrow.
Okay.
And so Ms. Broadison can let you know what date that would end up being, that final 10 days. Once
Again,
we
is that 10 working days or
calendar days.
calendar? Okay.
Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Thank you. Oop. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, I'll move on to item 2B, which is 650 Rockwood Drive. While Ms. Plummer is getting herself situated, I didn't open those plans yet, but they're on the desktop. I'll read the project description. This involves a property that's approximately just under 27,000 square feet. It's currently vacant. It involves construction of a new single-story, single-unit residence with a 500 square foot attached garage and a 767 square foot detached special accessory dwelling unit. It also includes new hardscape and landscape improvements and the removal of 5 coast live oak trees, which would be replaced with 7 new oak trees. The discretionary application under the jurisdiction of the staff hearing officer is a request for a front setback modification to allow the uncovered parking space for the accessory dwelling unit to be within that 35-foot front setback. And Ms. Plummer?
Thank you, Ms. Brooke. So as you noted in the project description, this is a proposal for a front setback modification. So that is what's the jurisdiction of the staff hearing officer at this hearing. The project site, actually, can we switch to the staff? Thank you. The project site is currently vacant and is under single-family design board review for a new residence with an attached garage and accessory dwelling unit, special accessory dwelling unit. Perfect. So this is just a plot plan, but it shows the location of the new residence. There is a driveway and garage and uncovered parking space associated with the accessory dwelling unit that's detached on the property, as well as hardscape and landscape improvements throughout. Here are just some photos of the existing site. The top right view is off Rockwood Drive, and these are just additional photos. Again, the property is currently vacant. So as I mentioned, the discretionary application under the staff hearing officer's jurisdiction is a front setback modification to allow the uncovered parking space associated with the ADU to be located within the 35-foot front setback. And that's shown on the screen in this location. The space is also bordered by a low concrete retaining wall. The project has been reviewed by the Single Family Design Board on 2 occasions, beginning first in November of 2021. At that time, a modification had not yet been determined, but the Single Family Design Board provided positive comment in general about the project as a whole. And then in April of 2022, specifically for the front setback modification associated with that parking space, and found it aesthetically acceptable, and the amount of screening, which I'll cover later, is acceptable as well. This property is located in the Foothill High Fire Hazard Area, so development as it pertains to an accessory dwelling unit is limited to a special accessory dwelling unit which has specific development standards, or a junior ADU, and in this case, the applicant is proposing a special ADU. The parking requirement for that unit is one covered or uncovered parking space per unit or bedroom, whichever is less. So hence, they are proposing a uncovered space. There are exceptions outlined in the ordinance whereby parking would not be required, such as proximity to public transit. However, this particular property does not meet that criteria, so they do need to provide the space. And I'll show you the floor plan for that special ADU really quick, so you can see that. So this is just a, here. So here are examples of the special ADU, and this is the floor plan. Again, it's a one-bedroom unit. There are alternatives to this particular design. The applicant could study doing a studio unit rather than a one-bedroom unit, and no parking would have been required for that unit. However, the applicant reviewed that and determined that they did want to provide a one-bedroom configuration. That was the owner's preference, as well as they did want to provide a parking space for that unit, given the location and just as a general benefit to the neighborhood and property. Other alternatives would be to relocate the ADU further back on the property and its associated parking. However, the lot does get smaller towards the back. They do have to consider their interior setback as well. And in addition to that, that would have increased the amount of potential paving in the front setback. The ordinance does include language about reducing the amount of paving that can be used for vehicles to make sure that the amount of paving is only associated with permitted parking. So additional parking, let's say to this direction towards the back, would have increased the potential for unpermitted parking beyond what's approved on site. In addition to that, the lot has a 17% slope. So there's potential impacts to grading, as well as, again, increased hardscape reduces the amount of landscape and other outdoor amenities that could be proposed on the site. Staff, in their review, did find the modification request appropriate. The parking space well within the front setback is sufficiently screened by trees. There's also fencing at the front and, as I mentioned earlier, a low concrete retaining wall, as well as on the interior by some sort of fencing material and vegetation screening. I do want to mention that in the staff report, and it's noted on the plans that they're proposing a wood fence, but that material is ultimately subject to the Single Family Design Board's purview. So they'll be reviewing that when this goes for project design and final approval. The project was reviewed for consistency with the California Environmental Quality Act and was found exempt per CEQA Guidelines 15303, which allows for the construction of a new residence as well as an accessory structure such as an accessory dwelling unit, as well as 15305 as it pertains to the modification. And that actually, and just one other point, in terms of noise and privacy, staff did look at that and ultimately determined that it is generally unlikely to cause those type of issues. The space is not directly adjacent to the neighbor's building footprint. In addition, a parking space is not likely to cause those types of concerns, which would come up more with a building or deck within the setback, for example. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer. I just have one question. I know it's in the staff report, but just for everyone to be aware of so the parking space for the ADU is subject to the regular front setbacks for this zone, and then the interior setback, can you just confirm that that space will meet
Sure.
the parking setback there?
Yes, so the accessory dwelling unit ordinance does provide relief for the interior setback, not for the front, but for the interior, provided that the space is located further than 3 feet from that property line. And I don't think I mentioned that, but it's 5 feet 7 inches at the closest point. And there also is a landscape buffer, which is included in the ADU ordinance as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions for staff at this time, so if the applicant would like to come up and then add anything that wasn't already covered, and I may have questions for you, just depending on what comes up. Thank you. Oh, it does look like you need to turn the mics on too.
Good morning. I'm Adam Sharkey with Blackbird Architects. This is Shauna Reeder, the owner.
Good morning.
We're here to ask for approval of this modification request. We've had positive design review specifically for this item with the SFDB. See it as a useful way to have an appropriate parking space that takes the minimal amount of additional grading or paving on the lot. And we're available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I do have a couple questions before I open public comment, just to clarify and maybe expand on the reasoning for how you landed with this site plan configuration, because I will say when we are dealing with the vacant lot, it's often challenging to support modifications to the zoning standards because you have essentially a blank slate. I did go to the site and I walked around the street and up and down the street and was trying to get a sense of the pattern of development in the neighborhood and just how they all dealt with the topographical changes, as it looks like it's fairly similar on the surrounding sites on your side of the street. And they deal with parking in a variety of ways. So if you can just talk about, did you explore having the driveway come straight into the garage and then have the parking space just off the side of that, or any other configuration that doesn't have that sort of 90-degree return to the front? And then also talk about, if you can, locations of trees and maybe how that influenced your decision in trying to minimize removal of trees.
Thank you, Ms. Brooke. Yes, we looked at a variety of site development options early on. As you noted and can see from visiting the site, it is a steep, I think Pilar was saying per city GIS, 17% slope north to south. So working with a civil engineering to make meet the transportation standards for the turn and coming down the hill, locating all the structures outside of the front yard setback, orienting the house along the contours to minimize grading. So that's following the hillside design guidelines. There are, as you noted, about trees, there's those to the right of the garage. There's 3 small existing oaks that we work carefully to retain. Because of the length of the slope to get down and into the garage and provide adequate back out and turnaround, we needed that T shape is the most efficient and best for the driveway configuration for minimizing paving, allowing covered parking that would be in the attached garage. And so really it's just a minor extension of that to provide that additional space. We studied that to make sure that the uncovered parking space is not impacting the ability maneuvering for the designated 2 covered parking spaces. So those garage spaces need to back out and be able to proceed up the driveway. The driveway is, by nature of the slope and length, long enough where a turnaround is required anyway, so they couldn't back out onto Rockwood Drive.
Okay, thank you. That helps explain the configuration of the driveway, just with the slope coming off of the street and being able to come in a gradual slope into the parking area. I appreciate that. On the, I'm not sure what sheet, one of the sections I think shows a good example of how this space would be screened from Rockwood. Let's see if I can help you find that section, but it was helpful for me to see how it would seemingly have minimal impacts to the neighbors. Looks like A4 dash, yeah, A4, there you are. If you could just speak to that a little bit about the retaining wall.
Yeah, so
And then
section,
ultimately, yes, I understand the screening would be subject to single-family design board, but it does help build the case for minimizing impacts here.
yes, so again, due to the slope of the site and the need to make appropriate vehicle maneuvering for the main two-car garage spaces, there's a approximately 4-foot-high retaining wall that is to the north of the structure. That is where the extension of that would be where the ADU parking space is. Up at the street, we can go to the landscape plan, but there's existing trees to remain and new trees to be added, including some of these mitigation oak trees. There's also a 3.5-foot wood fence proposed and new low landscaping. So the auto parking space of the ADU would be basically adjacent to this 4-foot wall, and therefore the vehicle viewed from the street, you're kind of looking over the top, in essence, of the vehicle, as well as having to look kind of through the fence and new landscape screening. All of that seemed highly beneficial for meeting the intent of screening uncovered parking from views from the street, while not adding extensively to grading or paving on site. On the eastern property line, an 8-foot privacy fence is proposed, and that would be fully landscaped. So to provide both buffer screening as well as just a landscape. It's a very rural area, so the intent is to enhance the amount of sort of overall landscape and bucolic nature of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. I think that addresses my questions. So I'd like to open public comment for this item. If there's any, I didn't receive any written correspondence, but if there's anyone here or online who wants to speak.
Yes, we did receive one speaker slip from Todd Christopher.
There you go. Oh, thank you. My name is Todd Christopher.
Oh, is your, make sure your mic's on.
I'm on? Okay. Can you hear me?
The light green.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Thanks. What do you want me to do? Oh, there we go.
There it is. There you got it.
No problem. Hi, my name is Todd Christopher. I'm the homeowner contiguous next door to at 706 Rockwood Drive. I'm a little bit shocked by the information, limited as it is, that I've received on this project from both the proposed owners and the city. I'm new to this process. I have no idea when meetings happen, when approvals get made. All I've done is try to either give comment or ask questions, propose concerns, and I don't get any answers. And neither do other neighbors. And so we don't know what a timeline is for any of this project. So I'm here on behalf of myself and also other neighbors. And I'm going to go through this because it does pertain to this ADU, but it involves the whole project, okay? And because I talked to Allison about a month ago, and you're going to find some of these things shocking, but I will be brief. Number one, Ciolita Oaks is a homeowners association that's been established in 1963 with many covenants and restrictions and bylaws pertaining to lot use and characteristics of the neighborhood. There's 28 lots in total. 25 of the homes were built between 1963 and 73. That means this is a very, very old neighborhood. In fact, only one home was built in 2006, and one home was completed in 2022, which is on the other side of me, okay? Which was approved by your boards and design boards and our homeowners association. The average square footage of all the homes in this neighborhood is 2,625 square feet. The home completed in 2022 adjacent to me has approximately 2,200 square feet. And the owners and the city and the homeowners association did not remove one coastal oak or any other tree during or after construction. The characteristics mandated by our CCNRs and our homeowners association dating back to 1963, the city of Santa Barbara and the city arborist were followed from completion of this home. The sole tree removed in this project was a eucalyptus tree, and it was because it was a dangerous fire hazard and a hazard to the other home. And the fire department recommended strong removal. You go by the home today, you wouldn't even know this home was built. It could have been built 20, 30 years ago. It maintained the integrity and characteristics of the neighborhood. 650 Rockwood Drive is the last lot available to build in this old, charming, quiet neighborhood nestled amongst the coastal
We'll
oaks.
need you to wrap up soon.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Well, do allow me some latitude here, please, because this is a very big project. These trees took decades to grow, and the material to grow to maturity and create privacy and tranquility to the homeowners. The lot has not been built on in 60 years, and there are very few trees on this lot. The remaining trees are mainly situated on the outline. The proposed project here is for 3,420 square feet, 767 for a detached dwelling, and 500 feet for a garage. That's 4,687 square feet. This is approximately 80% larger than the average square footage of all other homes in the homeowners association. The property owners are proposing using 99% of the legal capacity to build a mega mansion, which is more suited for Beverly Hills than our quiet, distinguished
Mr.
neighborhood.
Christopher, I apologize.
Why? I'm sorry,
because
ma'am. You know
your
what?
time is up, and
Okay.
so far you haven't spoke to any items that are actually within my jurisdiction, which is
That's
just
right.
the front setback
You want to know why?
modification for the parking space.
Because Miss Allison told me about this. You're talking about, I'll fast forward here to the end, which has to do with getting notice to us in the neighborhood, okay? In mid-May 2022, I saw a small illegible flyer stapled to a tree on 650 Rockwood Drive. After looking through binoculars, I was able to read about a city meeting that was going to discuss the removal of several trees regarding this setback. At the end of May 2022, I contacted Allison, and I requested an extension so that the homeowners association can discuss this. There's never been a homeowners association. The readers have never approached the homeowners association to discuss this project in any way, shape, or form to any of the homeowners. Most homeowners don't even know what's going on. And so now, how am I supposed to know, or any other homeowner, where we are in this process when you're talking about approving some large project and cutting down trees that cannot be replaced because they take decades to grow?
I understand your concern, and I will say I think that's far more within the jurisdiction of the Single Family Design Board. This project
Right.
does need to return to the Single Family Design Board after this hearing, so there will be other opportunities.
I appreciate
address
that. The reason I'm just saying this to conclude is because I don't know about this process.
Sure.
And nobody has spelled out to us how it works and when we can have public comment to what's going on. It seems to us that basically all these things are signed off on, that they're approved for this construction site, this large, to take down all these trees, and we have not had any say. We have had no public meeting. I've been at all of them.
Okay.
So I appreciate your time. I thank you for letting me speak, and I would
Thank
like
you
this
for being here.
part of the public record.
Yes, this certainly will go into the public record. Thank you for
Thank you very much.
providing it in writing as well as your verbal comments.
Thank you.
And I do, this has been noticed at Single Family Design Board, correct? So it will be noticed again before it returns for any type of project design approval, so you should get another notice. Everybody within 300 feet of the property site will get a notice before it's scheduled for an actual decision at the Single Family Design Board. So far, it's been comments just to get to this stage.
Okay. I should note that I just received, and I showed this young lady, a postmark June 9th, 2022, for the meeting in April. Okay, addressed to me. I mean, you know, it's really discouraging when you don't even know when a meeting takes place or what's taking place.
That's understandable.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Fennessy, could you switch back to the site plan, so the laptop, thank you. Okay, and were there any other speakers online who?
There were no other further
Okay.
comments.
I'll close public comment, recognizing the speaker and the letter received today. And as just mentioned, so this hearing is one step in the process for this project. It has been to the Single Family Design Board twice for comments until it was ready enough to come for the modification to be considered by the staff hearing officer, and then it will return to the single-family design board for all other aspects of the project. As I mentioned, I visited the site in the neighborhood and was wanting to understand a little bit more about other aspects of the driveway and parking area that are within the jurisdiction of the hearing officer, to just see what else was explored to not need the modification. I understand the reasons for how the configuration was ultimately designed in this way. And I appreciate that the parking space is expected to be screened from the public street due to topographical and other screening, natural and other screening mechanisms. So I'm able to agree with staff's support of the front setback modification and the conditions. Actually, this one doesn't have conditions, does it? No, no conditions on this one. The finding is laid out. I would like to modify just slightly. So I'll just read it with the changes as I'd recommend making. That the staff hearing officer finds that the front setback modification is consistent with the purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance and is necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. And although not an unreasonable hardship, the location of the parking space also does attempt to address the topographical changes and overall preservation of the trees as it relates to the larger project. The parking space will be screened from the right-of-way by trees, a fence, and small concrete retaining wall, and from the adjacent property by a new wood fence and privacy screening. Impacts to the neighbors are not anticipated, given that parking generally does not contribute to additional noise or privacy concerns. The property is also located in the high fire hazard area with limited off-site parking. Therefore, the proposal to provide an uncovered parking space is considered a benefit to the property and surrounding neighborhood. So with that, I'll be approving the front setback modification with the slight revision to the findings. I do want to also, just as I did with the other project, Ms. Finney, if you could switch it to just the appeal procedures, that with this decision, it is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and with that, in that same time, the Planning Commission can also call up any decision of the staff hearing officer. Should they do that, or if an appeal is filed, Ms. Plummer would alert the applicant to that. On the screen shows the procedures if someone is interested in appealing. And again, any appeal would be limited to my decision on the front setback modification for the location of the parking space for the accessory dwelling unit. And with that, if there's no other comments or questions, I'd
Thank you.
adjourn this item. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And that is the last item on the staff hearing officer agenda. So with that, I would adjourn today's meeting.